Let's do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome in to the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. Head over there, subscribe, be part of the chat, to be part of the conversation, all that good stuff. Maybe you're watching on Twitter, _ Jonathan Smith, or maybe you're listening via that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can get wherever you download your apps. 11 o'clock, Zack Gray set to join today. He's going to give you a bunch of college basketball bets. He went 12-2 the other day, so I think he's kind of rolling right now. So make sure you check him out. Once again, that's coming up here in about an hour. But we have to start with the Indiana Hoosiers and their loss to Oregon. And it really kind of felt like the last time that they played. Indiana just couldn't score enough. And it makes sense because, Oregon, that's a good defensive team. It's part of why I said they were my dark horse to win the Big Ten tournament this year. For that reason, they can just guard. And when you hold teams to 59 points, you're going to have a really great chance to win like they did yesterday. First time they played, they held Indiana to 64 points. Oregon is a good defensive basketball team. And once again, Indiana goes in there and they just didn't shoot the ball well. They didn't shoot the ball well enough to beat them. They were 4 of 16 from three. If you aren't going to make threes, then you better make free throws. And Indiana was 5 of 10 from the free throw line. They didn't finish in the lane. They scored 36 points in the paint. But they were 18 of 40 from inside the lane. That's not good. Shooting 45% on shots within 10 feet of the basket, not a good thing. I personally wouldn't sign my basketball team up to shoot that poorly from inside the lane. You have to make layups. You have to finish at the rim better than that, especially when you're this Indiana team that, that's where they score the basketball. It's Malik Renew on the block. It's Omar Ballo on the block. It's Miles Rice and Trey Galloway, especially Trey Galloway, getting to the rim or making a floater. That is how Indiana has scored the basketball during this, better stretch. I wouldn't call it a good stretch, but a better stretch of their season. 45% shooting on paint shots just is bad. And you don't deserve to win when you shoot the ball that poorly from inside the lane, when you shoot 5 of 10 from the free throw line, and you shoot 4 of 16 from three. You have to shoot the ball better than that. Here is Trey Galloway and Indiana head coach Mike Woodson after the game talking about just the lack of offensive production and why they were held to a measly 59 points.
Yeah, I think they're a good defensive team. But I think, like I said, just being able to finish around the rim, we had a lot of open, easy looks that we normally make, and we didn't. And then, 50% from the free throw line, we didn't shoot the free throw well. Or same thing from three. So it's just being able to make shots and, like you said, shoot them with confidence.
Here's Mike Woodson, Indiana head coach, echoing those same thoughts.
No, I thought they had a lot to do with it, although we missed a lot of chippies around the rim with Ballo and Malik. I thought that was a big difference. When they're not leaving Goody and Mack and giving you the looks that sometimes we've been accustomed to getting with those two guys, you got to make plays around the rim. And, again, a 2-possession game. We missed 2 front ends of a 1-and-1. That was huge. I thought that was, after getting back in it, that was a big difference in the game because they made us pay both possessions back down the court offensively where we couldn't get to stop.
Mike Woodson and Trey Galloway right there talking about just the struggles that they had offensively yesterday afternoon in that loss to Oregon. Just didn't shoot the ball well. And you're not going to beat teams, good teams especially, when you don't shoot the ball. And this team, this version of Indiana basketball has struggled offensively really all year, especially when it comes to production from their guards. They felt non-existent yesterday. Tip of the cap to Malik Renew, who struggled against Nate Biddle, last week when they played against Oregon. 4 of 12 from the field, only scored 8 points. He was really good yesterday, I thought. Finished with 19 points on 8 of 15 shooting. That was the offense, though. No one else consistently scored. You say, well, Jonathan, Mackenzie Mbako, he had 12 points. He shot 5 of 10 from the floor. Yes, he wasn't consistent, though. Comes out, scores a quick 5 points. And I'm, sitting here as a guy who really loves the talent that Mackenzie Mbako has. He hits those 2 shots. I'm like, here we go. He's going to score 20. I'm going to, victory lap kind of tomorrow because Mackenzie Mbako is going to be the reason why they win this game. So he comes out, he scores 5 points. He then goes 13 minutes without scoring, and he finally hits another mid-range jump shot. Okay, so that gets him to 7 points in the first half. Doesn't score again the rest of that first half. And then he doesn't score until 7 minutes into the second half. Right? And then he scored, his final points of the game when the game was essentially already over. He didn't score consistently enough for Indiana to win that game. You have to have consistent offense. And Indiana just had too many droughts where they didn't score at all. And that's problematic. Trey Galloway, he finished the game with 15 points and 9 assists. And I'm sure box score watchers who didn't really watch the game are going to be like, oh, Trey Galloway. Not his fault. Not his fault that, Indiana lost. I disagree. 15 points, 9 assists, 5 turnovers as well, by the way. He should have had numbers like that. He played 35 minutes. He took 18 shots. He has the ball in his hands more than anyone else for Indiana. And it is, quite frankly, not really close. When you have the ball in your hands for 35 minutes, you should put up some sort of numbers. You should put up some stats. But 15 points and 9 assists is like that's all you get when you have the ball in your hands for 35 minutes. You took more shots, 18, than points that you had. Like, you can't be that inefficient if you're going to take 18 shots. You can't be that inefficient if you're just going to dominate the ball the way that Trey Galloway did and the way that he has recently. And I don't want to pile on too much because he's been much better here as of late. Okay, he's a large part of why they beat Michigan State. He's a large part of why they beat Purdue. But 6 of 18 from the floor is not going to cut it when you're playing against a team as good as Oregon. You had the ball in your hands for 35 minutes. And like, that's all that you have to show for it. 15 points? Come on now. Luke Goody, who was awful yesterday, so awful, didn't make a shot. Finished with 1 point. He was 0 of 5 from the floor and 0 of 4 from 3. I am curious, Luke Goody. I know you're tuned in right now. Quick question for you, Luke Goody. Are the people who have supported you all year, are they allowed to flip sides and be upset with you? Because Luke Goody actually makes the rules when you're allowed to like switch sides and do all that kind of stuff. So I'm just curious, are people allowed to be upset at you for not making a single shot from the field against Oregon in a game that Indiana really needed to win to punch their ticket to the NCAA tournament? Speaking of shooting, Oregon shot the ball so much better than Indiana did. And they shot it so much better than they did last week in Eugene. They shot 40% from 3. They shot 24% in that game last week, and they shot 40% yesterday compared to Indiana's 25%. Last week in Eugene, they shot 39% from the field. Yeah, they shot 49% from the field yesterday. Indiana only shot 36% from the field. They were much better offensively. Indiana, just took a step back. They just didn't defend specifically on the perimeter very well. I thought Indiana did a good job of slowing down Nate Biddle offensively. He's Oregon's leading scorer. He only scored 7 points. He was 2 of 8 from the field. Ballo, Renew they did an excellent job guarding him. But as has been the issue for Indiana really all year this year, guards. Oregon's guards were significantly better than Indiana's. Significantly. Oregon's, guys that really score from the guard spot, Jackson, Shellstad, and TJ Bamba. Those guys were awesome. 35 points on 12 of 22 shooting. That's what they combined for. That is great production, and you're about to hear me say this every single day, probably until the college basketball season's over. March, it's all about guards. You're not winning tournament games. You're not winning close, tight games unless you have guards that are really good. And Oregon's guards were, once again, significantly better than Indiana's yesterday. Jackson, Shellstad, and TJ Bamba, 35 points, 12 of 22 shooting. For Indiana, the guys that can at least kind of score weren't very good. Trey Galloway, Kanan Carlisle, and Miles Rice combined for 15 points on 6 of 25 shooting. Kanan Carlisle didn't make a shot. Miles Rice didn't make a shot. You can't have that. Say, what about Anthony Leal? Okay, let's throw him in there. Let's throw in his whopping 4 points on 2 of 3 shooting. Those numbers for the Indiana guards then all of a sudden leap to 19 points on 8 of 28 shooting. That's bad. You aren't beating anyone that's worth their salt when your guards are that inefficient and can't score on the offensive end. The things that have gotten Indiana beat all year is what got them beat yesterday. They shot the ball poorly, 25% from 3. That's bad. There are high schools here in the state of Indiana who would have shot the ball better than that. Their guards just didn't produce the way that Indiana needed them to. 8 of 28 from the floor. That's terrible. That's awful. And defensively, their guards just weren't good enough. There's no other way around it. Jackson, Shellstad, and TJ Bamba, especially late down the stretch for Oregon, did an excellent job of getting to their spots and actually making shots. TJ Bamba hit a little tough, fall away floater when Oregon really needed a bucket, and because it was kind of close late. Indiana cut it down to 1 a couple of times, and every time they did, TJ Bamba or Jackson Shellstad seemed to find a way to score. And every chance Indiana had to take the lead, they couldn't get a bucket. The one bucket that they needed, they just couldn't quite seem to get. And you have to have guys like that on your team. I'm going to talk about Cooper Flagg later today because that injury, when you look at just the masses of college basketball and who's going to win the whole thing, that's huge. He didn't break his ankle, but he rolled that thing really, really good yesterday. And I haven't seen how long he's going to be out for, but at least 2 weeks. At least 2 weeks. And, oh, geez, man. And the biggest thing for them isn't that they're all of a sudden going to not be talented anymore because Duke has a lot of good players. But now, the guy who always seemed to make the play when Duke needed it, he's gone. Indiana doesn't have a guy like that. Whenever Indiana, all year long, I think Indiana's been looking for someone to step up when the game is close late to hit the big shot or to get that one big defensive stop. They haven't had it. When Trey Galloway hit that shot against Ohio State in their final regular season game of the year, to put him up 5, he hits this pull-up 3 with the shot clock winding down. I just remember thinking, is this going to be the moment where he becomes that guy? Because usually it's your 5th-year senior or your uber-talented freshman who's kind of that guy that makes big shots late. Indiana hasn't had it all year. It's why they've lost all of these close games. And when you look at the best teams in college basketball, that guy who gets big buckets late is usually a guard because it's just easier for them to create offense. It's tough for Omar Ballo or Malik Renew to be that guy because Indiana has to come down the floor. They got to clear it out. And then they have to give the ball to, Malik Renew or Omar Ballo. There has to be this middleman. Whereas Oregon, we're going to inbound the ball to Jackson Shellstad or TJ Bamba. And they're going to handle the ball so well, and they're going to get to their spot, and they're going to score when we need them to. Indiana hasn't had a guy like that all year. Miles Rice was supposed to be that guy, and he simply did not live up to that reputation that he had coming over from the Pac-12. Now we turn our attention to Sunday. Is this NCAA tournament committee going to put Indiana in? I think that they should. pretty firmly. Joe Lunardi disagrees with me. He's got Indiana on the outside looking in. I'm going to tell you why Joe Lunardi's wrong when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
The best takes, stories, and entertainment. It's The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket. 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Hopefully you're having a nice week. Indiana losing yesterday to Oregon. Have they done enough to make the NCAA tournament? That is the question that Malik Reneau and Trey Galloway were asked yesterday. Here are Malik Reneau and Trey Galloway's responses explaining why they should be in the NCAA tournament?
Well, I think we should be in the tournament because we got some big solid wins, not only against Michigan State, but, we got Purdue at home, and then we, swept OSU too. So I think we had some solid wins, and we also had some not bad losses, but we had some good losses where it came down to the wire, and we couldn't get over that hump. But I feel like they give us a chance. We'll try to make a run in the tournament and give it all every time we step on the court.
Trey? Yeah, we know that we should be a tournament team, and there's a lot of opportunity for that. And I think just those crucial losses that we had that were just so tight, one possession games. So, but the way we've been playing the last month and a half, we've been playing like a tournament team. And I just think us just coming together and finding ways to get better. We haven't played our best basketball until now. So I think it's been good.
Trey Galloway at the end there, Malik Renew at the start, explaining why Indiana should be in the NCAA tournament. Malik Renew, sorry to inform you, but sweeping Ohio State, not really an accomplishment, especially this year. I don't mind Trey Galloway's argument as much. I still don't think it's a good one since, that Michigan State game, like they're 5-3 with wins over Michigan State and Purdue. Their losses came to Oregon twice and UCLA at home. Is that a tournament team? This year, I think it is. Joe Lunardi does not agree with me. As of last night, he has Indiana as the first team out. And I don't really understand it. When you look at the last four in, so the four teams that would be playing in Dayton, because 68 teams or whatever make it, and then, those last two slots for the field 64, if you win, then you advance to, and you're, like a 12 seeder or whatever. The only team that Joe Lunardi has in the last four in front of Indiana that I think actually deserves to be in front of Indiana is Texas. Texas is 6-9 in quad one games. Nice. And they're playing in the toughest conference in the country by far. The reason why they're on the bubble is because they're 3-5 in quad two games. I just want to know that you can beat good teams. Like, if I'm going to put you in the NCAA tournament, you have to have good, impressive wins. Texas has 6 of them, including beating teams like Kentucky, and they beat Texas A&M yesterday. Like, those are really good wins. Like, those are teams that are going to be, like 5 seeds and below in the NCAA tournament. Those are the teams that should get in. And then you get to the other teams in front of Indiana that I don't understand. Xavier, San Diego State, and North Carolina. Here's my argument for Indiana over them. Indiana has more quad one wins than all of them. Indiana's 4-12 in quad one games. Not a good record. It's not a good record. I will completely and totally admit that. It's not. North Carolina's 1-11 in quad one games. Xavier, 1-11 in quad one games. San Diego State's 3-5. Indiana not only has more quad one wins than all these other teams, they also have the best win of all of these quad one teams. They beat Michigan State on the road. North Carolina's best win is UCLA on a neutral floor. It's a good win, but that's not Michigan State in East Lansing. Xavier beat Marquette at Marquette. That's a good win. That is not beating Michigan State, the Big Ten regular season champ, on the road in East Lansing. San Diego State's best win is Houston on a neutral floor. Now, while you could argue that Houston is a better basketball team than Michigan State, which I would agree with, beating someone on a neutral floor is not the same as going on the road to their campus and beating them in their own building like Indiana did to Michigan State. You could argue, or no, you can't argue because it's true. Indiana's second best win, Purdue at home, is a better win than North Carolina beating UCLA at a neutral site and Xavier beating Marquette on the road. Indiana has not only more quad one wins, but their best wins are better than these other three teams that they're competing against. The other thing that I think needs to be taken into this whole equation, Indiana has 0 bad losses. They do not have a bad loss. They are undefeated in quad 2, quad 3, and quad 4 games. All of their losses have come to good teams. North Carolina in quad 2, quad 3, and quad 4 games is 20-1 with a quad 3 loss to Stanford at home. They lost to a bad Stanford team at home. That's not very good. Xavier, they're 20-2 in non-quad 1 games with losses to TCU and Georgetown, 2 teams that aren't even sniffing the NCAA tournament. San Diego State, they are 17-3 in their quad 2, quad 3, and quad 4 games with a quad 3 loss to Wyoming and losses to Utah State and UNLV. Indiana has more good wins than Xavier, North Carolina, and San Diego State. They have better wins than Xavier, North Carolina, and San Diego State. They have less bad losses than Xavier, North Carolina, and San Diego State. I don't understand how Indiana could be on the outside looking in when they have more good wins, the best win, and no bad losses compared to the other teams that are on the bubble with them. And I know that, not everything that Joe Lunardi says is, 1,000% true, but he's usually right. He's usually correct. So I'm very surprised. And it's not because I think Indiana is some great team. I think I've been pretty adamant throughout the year that Indiana looks really good at times, but there've also been some moments where they've looked really bad. I think they're like an average basketball team. That's probably where I would put them. They're up and down. I would put them as an average team. But when you compare the resumes, their resume is better than North Carolina, Xavier, and San Diego State, 3 teams that Joe Lunardi currently has projected in the tournament with Indiana on the outside looking in. Indiana has also played, I think, in a tougher conference than all 3 of those teams. And I think the SEC, they're going to get teams in simply because they are the best conference this year. And they're going to give teams like Texas and Oklahoma maybe and Vanderbilt and Arkansas the benefit of the doubt of, they've played an incredibly tough schedule. When we get them in the tournament and they play not teams from the SEC, then I think they'll be fine. I think Indiana should be given that exact same benefit of the doubt because the Big Ten has been the second best conference in all of college basketball this season. Indiana should be in the NCAA tournament. But as of right now, Joe Lunardi has them on the outside looking in, which means we go into Indianapolis Colts mode. Who do we need to win? Who do we need to lose? And, all that good stuff. It's really more about who do we need to lose. Like that is really the question. So here is your Indiana hate watch for the day. If you are an IU basketball fan, here is who you need to beat who to bolster the chances that Indiana breaks into that field of 68. First and foremost, before I give you, the teams that you want to win, first and foremost, thank Marquette for beating Xavier. So Xavier can, they can't bolster their resume anymore. Thank Boise State for beating San Diego State. Okay, because that happened, earlier in the week. Now to the teams that you need to see lose. Duke needs to beat North Carolina. They play tonight at 7:00. Because look, if North Carolina beats Duke, they will put North Carolina in. I'm telling you that they will. And look, it's going to be tough for Duke. I'm going to talk about Cooper Flagg probably coming up here in about 10 minutes or so. Actually, no, I'm going to talk about Purdue coming up here in about 10 minutes or so, and then I will discuss the Cooper Flagg injury. So you need for Duke to beat North Carolina. At 3:30, you need Tennessee to beat Texas because maybe, just maybe, this will knock Texas out. I doubt that it will, but if Texas beats Tennessee, like, they are 1,000% locked, they are making the NCAA tournament. You need New Mexico to beat Boise State because that is a team just behind Indiana in terms of the teams projected to make the NCAA tournament. Like, you don't need Boise State picking up any more good wins. You need I forgot to write that one down. You need Utah State to beat Colorado State tonight. That game starts at midnight. Utah State is currently in front of Indiana. I don't think that there's any way that Indiana catches them. So you need Utah State to beat Colorado State. And then you need 0 bid stealers. You need no more bid stealers to occur. You also want all the teams that you've beaten this year to keep winning. So, like, you want Michigan State to win. You probably want Purdue to win because you want those teams and their net rankings to be as high as possible. And then once again, you need 0 bid stealers if you want to get into the NCAA tournament. Once again, I fully believe that Indiana should be in, not because they're great, but because their resume is simply better than all the other teams hanging around the bubble. More quad 1 wins than all of them. Their best win is better than all of theirs, and they don't have a bad loss. Meanwhile, every other team on the bubble seems to have at least one. Put Indiana in, please. Now, before I slide off to break here, I am going to quickly touch on Cooper Flagg and his injury. I hate this so much. Like, this greatly impacts who's going to win the whole thing because there are people out there, I'm not one of them, who believe that Duke is the best basketball team in the country this year. And the thing with Duke, they're still going to be good. They're still a second weekend team without Cooper Flagg. But he made them, arguably, the best team in college basketball. And as someone, selfishly, who loves the NBA and wants to watch Cooper Flagg on a big stage and see if he can rise to the occasion, see if he can, succeed under pressure, even though when you go to Duke, there's always a ton of pressure, I wanted to see him play. And if he doesn't play, I don't know how you pick Duke over Florida, Auburn, Houston, and St. John's, those upper echelon teams of the college basketball world. That being said, they're still good. This Knuppel kid, he's a 6'7" guard who can shoot the crap out of it. He's had a great year as a freshman. He had 28 points and 8 assists yesterday. Crazy. He's just been overshadowed by Cooper Flagg. Okay, Cooper Flagg just kind of has overshadowed every other freshman this year because he's been so good. Tyrese Proctor's still there. He's a good player. Duke has a ton of size. They're huge. They've got 2 legitimate 7-footers. One of them is 7'2". They both play. They don't have a non-walk-on under 6'5". You look at their roster, everyone is 6'5" and up. And then there's one guy, this short little white kid who's 5'8". And it's like, oh, you are clearly the walk-on. So they're huge. And when you're that big and you have positional size at every position, especially in college basketball, you are going to get stops. So defensively, they're still going to be really good. They shoot the crap out of the ball. They're at 39% from 3 this year as a team, but they're still going to take a step back. Okay? Yes, they'll still be really good without Cooper Flagg, but when you lose your leading scorer, leading rebounder, leading assist man, your steals leader, and your blocks leader, which is crazy that he leads them in all 5 major statistical category, you're just not going to be as good. But it's going to, provide room for some of these other guys to step up. North Carolina, sadly for Indiana fans, has a much better chance at beating Duke today with Cooper Flagg out. That's obviously a bad thing for Indiana. Indiana needs Duke to win today. Okay, if you are an Indiana Hoosier fan, you are pulling for Duke because if North Carolina beats Duke, they're getting in over Indiana. No way around it. When we come back, you're hearing about 4 minutes. Purdue barely escapes USC. My lock of the day missed yesterday. Loved that pick. Purdue minus 9.5. USC coming off that intense double overtime game, and they lose. And USC loses, but man, they played really hard. I'm going to tell you right now, USC will win the Big Ten with Eric Musselman as their head coach before whoever takes over IU. Because Eric Musselman is one of the best coaches in all of college basketball. It was fully on display last night. If he had just a little bit more talent, then they might win that game last night. So Purdue, they barely beat USC. And I think USC kind of gave the blueprint on how to beat Purdue. I'm going to tell you what that is when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Unadulterated sports talk with unfiltered takes. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Happy Friday. Oh, man, the weekend just sounds so nice. Sleeping in, watching college basketball conference tournaments, watching the Pacers. They play this weekend as well. Big game tonight, big game tomorrow. We're going to touch on them a little bit. Ooh, phrasing coming up here in a little bit. Purdue barely escapes USC. Purdue beats USC 76-71 in what was an amazing game. Braden Smith struggled. USC did an excellent job of making things hard on him. Right? They had size on him at all times. I've only watched USC play a few times this year because they aren't very good. But the one thing that does jump out about them, big guards. All their guards are, 6'3", 6'4", athletic, all of those things. And they made things really tough on Braden Smith again because he scored 9 points in that game, a month and a half ago when they hosted USC and ran him out of the building. Last night, 12 points on 3 of 10 shooting. He did have 9 assists, though. I thought he did a good job of, just taking what the USC defense gave him. But as we know, Purdue's 10-1, 9-1 when Braden Smith scores 20 points or more. When you shut off his water, Purdue's just not as good of a basketball team. But Trey Coppen-Wren was dominant. He was like, that's fine. You go ahead. You double Braden Smith. You force that basketball out of his hand. But if I get it, I'm going to go score. And that's what Trey Coppen-Wren did. 30 points on 12 of 20 shooting. He's good enough to beat you. We've seen him do it multiple times now where Braden Smith will have a bad game, and then he's like, no big deal, guys. You give me the ball on the block, and I'm going to go get a bucket. We saw it last night. He took advantage of every ball screen USC switched. When USC doubled Braden Smith coming off the ball screen, Braden Smith was excellent passing out of it, making skips to the opposite corner, which we'll talk about that here in a second because Camden Heide was awesome. Or, he'd make that little pocket pass and Trey Coppen-Wren's like, all right, cool. Like, I'm probably going to hit a little floater here. Every time he touched the basketball, Trey Coppen-Wren, I thought he was going to score, which I think is the ultimate compliment for any offensive player. The biggest thing, though, that he did last night, he played incredibly well with 2 fouls in the first half. Because, he, for some reason, just refuses to set his feet whenever he sets a ball screen or even an off-ball screen. And so he picks up his second foul with 9 minutes and 45 seconds left to go in the first half. Matt Painter pulls him out, as he should. That is, there's 3 minutes left. You want to leave him in? Cool. But 9 minutes left? Nah, man. Come on over. He pulls him out, and bang, USC, very quick run. Because they just were like, cool, no Trey Coppen-Wren. We're going to double Braden Smith, and we're not going to let him beat us. We're going to make someone else do it. So USC, quick spurt. They go up 9, and the game could have gotten away in those moments. Because USC did a great job taking advantage of the time that Trey Coppen-Wren was on the bench. Literally, Trey Coppen-Wren went to the bench. 2 minutes later, USC was up by 9. And Coach Painter's like, Trey Coppen-Wren, get back in there. And to Trey Coppen-Wren's credit, he didn't commit a foul for the rest of the half. And because of that, in part because of that, Purdue went into halftime tied because he just did an excellent job of playing defense with his feet, making sure that whenever he set a screen, his feet were set. Just like those small little minute details that I wish he was a little bit better at. That way he didn't commit all these fouls. So he was, his ability to play in the first half with 2 fouls is a large part of why Purdue stayed in the game. It's a large part of why they went into the half tied. And it's a large part of why they won the game because second half down the stretch, he was great. No way around it. The other reason, though, what I would argue, I wouldn't say the real reason, but just another big contributing factor to Purdue winning that basketball game is this guy who played 25-ish minutes a game last year, was a good defender, really good rebounder, and if you left him open, he would knock down shots. That guy actually showed up yesterday. His name's Camden Heide. That dude was awesome. No way around it. He played what I would argue is probably his best game of the year, given how close the game was and how badly Purdue needed him to play well. He hits 2 big threes in the first half to keep Purdue in the game, despite, Trey Coppen-Wren having 2 fouls and Braden Smith really struggling to score. He hits 2 big threes, both from the corner. He finished that game with 9 points and 11 rebounds. What is Purdue's biggest issue? Or what gives them all their issues? Their lack of size. Like, they just don't have the size to deal with a lot of these teams. Camden Heide gives them a little bit more size. Like, he's a real small forward. And Purdue needs him to continue to contribute the way that he has. He was important for them last year. Okay, he shot the ball well. He was a good defender. He rebounded the basketball. He was important for them. And this year, he just hasn't shot the ball very well, hasn't defended as well, and he hasn't rebounded as well. But last night, he shot it really well. 3 of 3 from 3. It's the only 3 shots that he took. 11 rebounds. And, that is so big for them. And he's 6'7". He gives them a little more size. He had a block. He's athletic enough that, he's obviously not just going to protect the rim, but he can come over from the weak side and block some shots. He gives them much-needed size and much-needed athleticism on the floor. Purdue needs him. More specifically, they need his rebounding and his shooting. He also made the biggest play of the game last night. USC has the ball. They're down by 2. USC's best player gets to his spot, the free throw line, gets off a good-looking jump shot. And I'm like, this ball game is tied, but it hits the back of the rim, bounces out, hard miss. And this USC player, he's going to grab his own rebound. And he's got it. He's got 2 hands on it. But Camden Heide comes in out of nowhere, knocks it loose, grabs it, gets it to Braden Smith, and then USC's fouling, and that was the game. Camden Heide knocking that offensive rebound out of the hands of USC's best player when, the USC's best player would have had another chance to tie the game. That play was huge. And it seemed like every time Purdue needed a play to be made, Camden Heide hit a 3, or he grabbed a very important rebound to end a possession, or he grabbed an offensive rebound to, give Purdue another shot at the basket, which they needed because they weren't a great offensive team last night. Also, real quick, Miles Colvin had a nice little cameo there at the end of the first half, those final 3 minutes. I thought he rebounded, defended, and he got a couple buckets, which was really big for them. So the other guys for Purdue needed to show up last night, and they did, especially Camden Heide. I thought he was awesome. They're going to play Michigan tonight, 9 o'clock, and this game's going to be awesome. It's going to be incredible. Obviously, the first time that Purdue played Michigan, they ran him out of the building. Okay, my favorite stat from the year, I don't know why I like it so much, but Michigan had more turnovers than field goals made in that game in West Lafayette. And then they rematch Michigan after, demolishing them in that first meeting. They rematched them in Ann Arbor. Great game. Went down to the wire, back and forth. I think, Purdue kind of stretches and makes things tough on Michigan in a very, specific way. Hey, Mike. He makes things really, really tough on them. And sorry, my boss just dropped something off for me, and it made me laugh a little bit. Purdue's guards, I think, put a lot of pressure on Michigan. Like going small can be advantageous, and I think against a team like Michigan, who's got Danny Wolf, a 7-footer playing point guard, when you go small, that gives them some issues. But obviously, Michigan being so big gives Purdue some problems as well. So it's a very interesting matchup of not contrasting styles, but contrasting lineups. And I think it's going to be a great game. Camden Heide, if he plays as well today as he did last night, Purdue will win that game. Because their issue all year has been the exact same thing. They don't have, a consistent role player doing role player things like rebounding and making threes. If Camden Heide does that, I love their chances to win today. Pacers, they're playing the 76ers tonight, and they're playing the Bucks tomorrow night on the road. 2 big games. And, so it's Friday, which means we're going to do the Moondrops sure shot of the week on the Dan Dockett Show today at some point. I haven't looked up the line for this. Don't need to. I don't care what it is. Pacers play the 76ers tonight on the road. Take the Pacers. I don't care if the line is 29.5. Seriously. It's going to be an absolute bloodbath. They're only favored by 13.5. Take the Pacers right now. So early in the week, Pacers, they beat the Bucks at home. Tyrese Halliburton hits that amazing 4-point play for the win. Just a great shot. At the end of that game, the Bucks, Pistons, and Pacers were all tied for 4th in the Eastern Conference. Since that game, Indiana is now 5th. They're half a game back of the Bucks, and they're half a game in front of the Pistons. If they don't win tonight, they do not deserve to be the 4th seed. Here's the Philadelphia 76ers injury report for tomorrow night. Joel Embiid is out. Paul George is out. Eric Gordon is out. Kyle Lowry's out. Tyrese Maxey's out. Jared McCain is out. And Lonnie Walker are all out. And then the questionable players are Alex Reese, Justin Edwards, and Andre Drummond. Here are the players that are not listed on the injury report for tonight's game. Jared Butler, you don't know who that is. Jeff Doughton Jr., I don't even know who that is. Quentin Grimes, who's a good player. Kelly Oubre, good role player. Jalen Hood-Schifino, Ricky Council IV, go Hogs. And then, Gershon Yabusele, if you watch the France national team this year, he's the guy who dunked on LeBron during the Olympics. And then Adem Bona. If the Pacers lose to Ricky Council IV and Jalen Hood-Schifino, they do not deserve to be the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference. The 3 best players for the 76ers are not playing tonight. The Pacers should win this game by a ton. They should be up by 20 at halftime, and they should cruise in the second half. Like, this game shouldn't be close. The fact that the line's only 13.5 is bonkers to me. Bonkers. Just absolutely bonkers. Take the Pacers minus 13.5. They should cruise. The Pacers' best players should play no more than 30 minutes. Okay, get out to a big lead early, sustain it, be up by 35 going into the 4th quarter, and then sit your starters the rest of the game so that they're somewhat fresh for their road game tomorrow night against the Milwaukee Bucks. That is another important game for the Pacers. If they want that 4 seed, the Bucks looked really good last night. They played a LeBron James-less Los Angeles Lakers team and just cruised. Luka did score 45, but they're playing well right now. Okay, so that they need that game tomorrow night. The Pacers do, in order just to kind of grab a nice little firm hold of the 4 seed, and they need the game tonight because if they lose tonight, they're now a game back of the Bucks, and if they lose, tonight and tomorrow, then they're 2 games back, which doesn't seem like a lot, but the NBA season's almost over. Okay, so they need to win tonight. If they win tomorrow night, they'll have control of that 4 seed. They'll also tie up the season series with the Milwaukee Bucks 4-2. I don't know what the second tiebreaker is after that proceeding, but I like the idea of who gets that 4 seed to be not based off head to head, because obviously if the Bucks win tomorrow night, then the Bucks hold that tiebreaker because they'll have won the season series 3-1. So hopefully the Pacers can win both. And if they do, they might be able to build a slight lead for that 4 seed. Maybe they're up a game or a game and a half, whatever it winds up being. But they definitely cannot lose tonight. If they lose to the 76ers tonight, who won't have their 3 best players, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and Paul George, they do not deserve to be the 4 seed. They are a 13.5-point favorite tonight. I would take them in a heartbeat. They should win by 20. This game should I should sit down because I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch I should watch the first half and be like, all right, cool. No need to watch anymore. That is what should happen tonight. Will it happen though? I don't know. That's why we watch the games. That's why we play the games. But my guy Zack Gray tends to know what's going on. He's been on a roll here lately, betting college basketball, as I know that a lot of us are doing right now. So he is set to join the show coming up here in about 5 minutes. He's been betting, as I said, really, really well here as of late. So Zack Gray at ZG the Grapevine on Twitter. He's set to join the show coming up here in about 5 minutes. Oh, he just texted me. Okay, cool. Yeah, we're going to do about 20 minutes. It'll be good. Zack Gray, professional sports gambler, joins the show coming up here in about 5 minutes.
do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in. Joined by Zack Gray, professional sports gambler. Check him out on Twitter at ZG The Grapevine, where he sells tools to help you make better bets. You can check that out at the link in his bio, his Patreon. It's great. Zach, what's going on, man? How are you?
Jay Smith, it's the best time of the year. I'm glad to be on, and I'm glad to talk hoops.
Me too. This is all I've done. I've just watched college basketball. I sat down last night to watch Purdue play USC. I was like, Purdue's going to cruise, -9.5. Easy. And then that did not happen. But yeah, like you said, it's the best time of the year. Let's start with bets, kind of like normal. What do you have to give out today?
Yeah, I'll give you guys two here. The first one tips at 3:00. We're going out to the Conference USA semifinal. Jacksonville State, Middle Tennessee. I have Middle Tennessee plus 2.5. I know, Jacksonville State here. They're the 2 seed. They're the higher seed in the tournament. Similar records, very similar teams. Both have won at home during the regular season convincingly. I just think Middle Tennessee State's playing a little better. Kennesaw State beat Jacksonville State at home recently. It's just a good spot for Middle Tennessee State. The 2.5's too much. Give me them.
Okay, I like it. The Blue Raiders of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. I love that. Let's go.
Right. The world famous Middle Tennessee State University Blue Raiders.
That's where my older brother and younger sister graduated from. So let's go.
Yeah. And then the big one, the one we kind of talked about off air. Everybody's going to be on North Carolina today. I don't blame them, whatever. But give me Duke -6.5. I think they're much more than Cooper Flagg. I think Cooper Flagg is obviously the best player in college basketball. Will and probably should win Player of the Year. He probably should sweep the awards. But I just think that team is really complete. Knipple, all of their ancillary pieces around Cooper Flagg. They're great basketball players. They have NBA guys on the team that haven't been able to kind of take the volume that they would like. I think you kind of see that today. It kind of opens some people's eyes that Duke can still make a run to the national title if Cooper Flagg is out for the rest of the year. I don't know if he will be, but this is me, planting my flag on Duke being still the best team in the country, even without Cooper Flagg.
Joined by Zack Gray, professional sports gambler, talking a little Duke basketball. Why do you think they're better? Why do you still think they're better than Florida and Auburn and these other kind of premier teams, even without Cooper Flagg?
Because I just think their roster is just head and shoulders deeper than everyone else. I think I don't want to mispronounce his name here. What's the center's name? Are you able to help me?
The
on
dude
that?
from Africa? Yeah, I wish I could help you out, man.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, I think he kind of controls things in the middle. Obviously, you have Knipple, Sion James, Tyrese Proctor, Mason Gillis, my fiance's cousin.
What?
No, they just have the same last name.
I was like, whoa, all right.
It's just one of those things, man, where I think you go up and down this roster, and if Cooper Flagg didn't exist for this season, Duke would still be a number 1 seed. I still think they would be considered, one of the favorites. But then you add Cooper Flagg, and now they're almost, a monster that can't be stopped. They're rolling downhill. So I just think the completeness of their roster, their ability to guard defensively, they're awesome. I know they'll take a little bit of a hit, obviously. But just overall, I just think their team, even without him, is as complete as anyone else in the country.
That's totally fair because they are super talented, and he himself is. I mean, like you said, he's the best player in college hoops this year. I mean, he's leading Duke in all 5 major statistical categories, and I'm very intrigued today to see kind of how they fill all those spots. Knoople's probably going to be the guy who runs the offense now. He was. I don't know how much you got to watch yesterday, but he was great even after Flagg went out. So I'm very intrigued to kind of see how they do that. I do want to ask you, though, joined by Zack Gray, talking a little March Madness. He just gave out some bets. He said to take MTSU and Duke today. You, like, whenever you come on, you always give out bets for these, like, mid-major teams. So I'm just kind of curious, heading into the tournament, who are some of the mid-major teams that you've watched this year that could maybe go on, like, you know, who can win 2 games and get to the Sweet 16? Like, who are those teams?
Yeah, so I'll start with one that's trendy that everyone probably thinks has the best chance. I don't like McNeese. I remember last year when they played Gonzaga in the first round, it was real trendy to take McNeese against the spread, all that stuff. But I just am not sold on their roster. I like Will Wade. I think Will Wade deserves possibly a North Carolina type job. I just don't think their team is very complete, and I think they're very, I think they're very limited. So I would pass on McNeese in the tournament, but give me my alma mater, High Point University, as the team that could sneaky get into the Sweet 16. I know that's a little bit trendy too. Maybe it's not. I'm just a sicko and follow all that stuff. So maybe not a lot of people have really paid attention to High Point. But they're explosive, man. They've had a lot of years where they win the Big South regular season championship and then get to the tournament and kind of fall flat and choke. This year they finally got it done. They're in the tournament. For example, they were down 15 points in the Big South title game. Ended up winning by double digits. So they're explosive. They have the ability to make big runs in short periods of time. So High Point would probably be my number one for, as of right now, for a chance to get to the Sweet 16.
What do you think of Drake? I've seen them because, there's murmurs of Ben McCollum potentially to Indiana. So I've been going back and watching some of their games. I really like them. What do you think about Drake?
Drake's good. They just know how to control the tempo of a game. They play at a little bit of a slower pace. They have guys that have played together for a while. I just don't know if you put them up against a team that can athletically dominate them, if they can kind of control the tempo and be as fundamental as possible. Because you know how it goes when you play someone that's more athletic than you, a little better than you, talent-wise, tends to speed you up. That's what I'm worried about with Drake. They're well coached. It's just one of those things where I think their style of basketball can only get you so far.
Joined by Zack Gray, professional sports gambler. You can check him out on Twitter at ZG The Grapevine. If you check out his Patreon, linked in his bio, you can check out what he sells, which are tools to help you win more bets, because that's ultimately the goal of gambling. Sure, it's fun, but it's way more fun when you actually win. You've been on a bit of a heater, right?
Yeah, man, it's been kind of awesome. We're up almost 17 units the last 7 days. The highlight was a 12-2 plus 9.8 unit day the other day. Was positive yesterday, so we're on a little bit of a streak here. 43-24 the last 7 days, 64% win percentage.
Jeez, yeah, that's really good. What do you make of the bubble? I feel like the bubble this year, which then again, I think we forget how bad these bubble teams are every year. But this year it feels especially bad. Like, what do you make of the Indianas, the North Carolinas, and the Xaviers?
All I want in life is for Xavier to not make the tournament.
That's
all I want.
Is this a Reed thing?
No, this is just a I live in Cincinnati and hate Xavier thing. They were bragging that they picked up another quad one win with UConn winning yesterday. I don't know if you've looked into it, Jonathan. But
I have.
Before last night, they've had one quad one win. They're 1-11 in quad one games, and I guess now you could say 2-11 because of a game they didn't even play in. So 2 quad one wins. I don't think they deserve to make the tournament. I don't think that they are of the same quality as these other bubble teams. I think they're paper tigers. I think yesterday kind of proved it. That's the Xavier way, right? You go up and you start making shots, and you're up 14 against Marquette. And instead of keeping it on the opponent and playing hard and playing smart, they just collapse. They aren't able to sustain quality basketball for 40 minutes. They're sloppy. They're soft. Their coach is overrated. And I just don't think they deserve to be in the tournament with their resume. as for the other teams, I think Indiana and Texas and even North Carolina deserve a shot over them. But yeah, it's kind of just a bunch of meh on the bubble on the last four in, first four out. And then even the last four buys, you just look at them and go, ugh, really? Arkansas?
I knew that was coming. I can't believe they lost yesterday. I just make your free throws. Let's set the defense and get one stop. But anyway, I think Indiana should be in. Like the fact that Joe Lunardi has them on the outside looking in when they have more quad one wins than Xavier and San Diego State and North Carolina. North Carolina, by the way, also 1-11 in quad one games. And then like you also throw in the fact that like San Diego State, North Carolina, and Xavier all have like a bad loss in there somewhere. Like if this was college football, I think everyone would adamantly be like, how can you put in North Carolina when they lost to Stanford at home? Meanwhile, like Indiana's undefeated in quad 2, quad 3, and quad 4 games. The issue is they're 4-12 in quad 1 games, but at the same time, like that's more wins than all of these other teams. They've got to win in East Lansing against Michigan State, the best team in the Big Ten this year. They beat Purdue at home, which like that win is better than Xavier's best win and North Carolina's best win. Like I don't know how Indiana is not projected to be in. Like I do not get it.
Any team that loses to Georgetown and Cincinnati in the same season does not deserve to be in.
Couldn't agree more. That is so well said. Joined by my good friend Zack Gray at ZG the Grapevine on Twitter. He's a professional sports gambler. If you check out the Patreon linked in his bio, he sells tools to help you make better bets, which you should go and totally purchase because he's on a bit of a heater right now, which we really, really love. Do you have any predictions for all the conference tournaments that are going on?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think Duke kind of defies the odds and wins the ACC. I'm actually kind of, I know Mark Mitchell's hurt from Missouri, but I like Missouri maybe to win the SEC tournament. I think they could shock the world today against Florida.
I hope you're right. My boss is a Florida fan, and it's just he doesn't talk about sports ever, and all of a sudden Florida's really good, and I got to listen to him talk about Florida all the time now.
Question for you.
Yeah.
Are we watching UConn get hot again and are they about to make a run?
I'm glad you brought this up. I don't know if when do they play St. John's? Because that's kind of like the litmus test for me. Like if they can just play them close, then I would totally buy into a UConn deep run. But I don't know. Like I don't think the Big East is very good either. So
no, they have Xavier in the Big. If Xavier's in the conference, your conference isn't good.
Fair.
You notice how I just get kind of a couple things happen that their fans or whatever kind of just start to ignore reality, and that's when I seem to attack. So it could be Arkansas one day, it could be Indiana football one day. Right now, it's Xavier basketball. So that's just I'm just pointing out the absurdity of Xavier Musketeer fandom at this time.
Yeah, and I love it. It's great. Yeah, I don't know. Like I think UConn should beat Creighton tonight, and then St. John's or Marquette. That'll be a tough game, especially if it's St. John's. But I'm not opposed to this idea of UConn all of a sudden kind of figuring out, because that's really, I don't know if this team is as good as the team from 2 years ago, but that's really what happens. Like they were great in non-conference. They struggled a little bit during like their Big East season, and then I believe they won the Big East tournament, earned a 4 seed, and then just didn't lose again. Then again, I don't know. Do you think that this version of UConn is as good as they were 2 years ago? Because they definitely aren't as good as they were last year.
No, I don't think they're as good as either of the title teams. I don't think they'll actually make a serious run, but I do think that they are going to. So I have a play today on the UConn Creighton game. I'll let you guys figure it out if you want to go to my Patreon and find out what that is. But if they get past this game today, I think it's going to be very interesting when we look at the bracket and kind of see how that shakes out. Because I think they're going to be, somewhere between, what does Lombardi have them at, a 7 or an 8, or
right
something
now.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be an interesting matchup for whoever the 1 seed is that they play. I think it's Florida.
Yep.
Projected as of right now. And then that kind of gets interesting. I'm saying just be on the lookout. I'm not predicting it, but there are warning signs that we may be seeing Dan Hurley on the big stage yet again.
Joined by my good friend Zack Gray, professional sports gambler. You can check out his Patreon, linked in his Twitter bio at ZG the Grapevine, where he sells tools to help you make better bets. Last thing for you. So you bring up UConn.
Hold on, Jay Smith.
Nope, go ahead.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Should we talk about LaMelo Ball so we can make that one guy happy again?
I mean, we can.
He never took me up on my offer. I told him, take my spot this week. We'll see how well you do on live radio.
You crack me up, man. Which team? Is there a team of all the teams that are probably going to be placed between like a 7 and a 10 seed? If you're a 1 or 2 seed, which one of those teams do you want to play the least? And why is it Arkansas?
It's not Arkansas. That's actually the team I want to play the most. I mean, obviously we just mentioned UConn. I think Marquette is one of those type of teams, like just because they have like a guy that can take over a game, Cam Jones, like any team that has one of those guys that is just like up for first team All-American or, second team All-American that can really just kind of be like, oh, well, our entire game plan is centered around stopping him and we still can't. Like that's the scary teams.
Okay. Yeah. That totally makes sense. I'm with you. I think for me, it's
State
UConn.
Doesn't have that guy. Creighton doesn't really have that guy.
Yeah.
Memphis, Gonzaga, like Georgia don't really have that guy. But like, you look at Marquette, they have that guy. Baylor, they have that guy. Like there's certain delineations that you can make. And that's not a guaranteed marker for success. Yeah. But it's just another layer of like, oh, like this could get weird if we really let this guy get going early on.
VJ Edgecombe at Baylor, he's going to be, like a top 10 pick. He's going to be awesome. That dude's so athletic. I love watching him play.
I like when he dunks on Mark Few's son.
Me too. I think that's great. Like they're really good. Actually,
I think we should just have a dunk contest where Mark Few's son has to prevent dunks after the season, and have Edgecombe and all these other guys just like, that's the dunk contest. It's just dunking on Mark Few's kid.
What's really funny, I was looking at the Duke roster yesterday just because I was like, they're huge. I think part of why they're so good defensively is they don't have a guy on their roster shorter than 6'5". Actually, that's not true. They have one guy. He's a walk-on and he's 5'8". And I just think that's so funny that there's all these like 6'5", 7'2" guys, and it's like 5'8".
Yeah.
Last thing for real. I know that you have to go. Of a team that's probably going to earn a top 3 seed, which one are you like the most concerned about, like getting bounced in the first or probably more likely the second round?
That's a good question. Michigan State comes to mind off the top of my head. Tennessee is I have backed off Tennessee pretty significantly. I think Michigan State probably stands out the most to me, but it's hard because like I have came on this show and propped up Texas A&M and like Clemson and teams like that. Like I don't think people really buy into Michigan State yet. I think the overall consensus of Michigan State is like they aren't good, but somehow they are. And I think that's probably the most popular pick of the group. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would. My concern is just like I really like when you bring up Michigan State. Any team that I have questions about offensively, like this is something that Dan and I have talked about a pretty decent amount. Every team in college basketball is probably going to score somewhere between 60 and 70 points unless you're IU yesterday. And the teams that can play in the 80s, especially in those early round games, like I have no concerns about. Like for me, it's the teams that struggle to score the ball. So like I'm kind of like worried about St. John's a little bit, Michigan State, those kind of teams.
Yeah, we talked about this last week. The difference with St. John's is just they're so well coached, and they're like, I know Michigan State is well coached, but I just think that Rick Pitino right now is getting a level of effort and togetherness with St. John's that Michigan State doesn't quite have. Not saying Michigan State doesn't have that. I don't want to disrespect the legend Tom Izzo, but
of course not.
My point is, I just feel like St. John's is rolling, and they can withstand some offensive issues with the way that they are playing together. Like they just don't, it never feels like St. John's is out of a game, and it never feels like they're actually going to lose. It's very straight. It's a very like magical, to use a lack of a better word, like vibe that they have right now.
It just means that they're really good. Like when you watch them, it's like, yeah, like I still think they're probably going to win, even though they're down 8 right now. Like that's the sign of a really good team.
Right. And so, I don't feel that same way with Michigan State.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Like when you lose to Indiana at home, I would have some questions about you as well. Seriously. Like I would. Zach, I know you got to run. Thanks for your time as always. We're taking Middle Tennessee State today and Duke, which sounds pretty great to me. Thanks, man, for your time.
Yeah, man. Have a good one.
You too. See you. That is Zack Gray. You can check him out on Twitter at ZG The Grapevine. Check out his Patreon linked in his bio where he sells tools to help you make better bets. I know I kind of ragged on Indiana there just a little bit, but when we come back here in about 4 minutes, I'm going to talk about their loss yesterday to Oregon, and then I'm going to make the case for why they should make the NCAA tournament. All that coming your way here in about 4 minutes.
fits in today's sports world. It's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Hopefully you've had a nice week. It is Friday. We've made it. Hallelujah. It's here. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Twitter, __ Jonathan Smith, if you want to follow me there, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to watch on YouTube. Gonna talk a little Indiana losing to Oregon. Just a bad offensive team. That's what Indiana was yesterday. And part of that is because Oregon's a good defensive team. It's part of why I said they were my dark horse to win the Big Ten tournament before, all these games started. But they held Indiana to 64 points last week, and they topped that by holding them to 59 points yesterday. Indiana just didn't shoot the ball well. 4 of 16 from three. And if you aren't going to make threes, then you better make some free throws. Indiana didn't do that. They were 5 of 10 from the free throw line. They didn't finish in the lane. It's like, well, Jonathan, they scored 36 points in the paint. What do you mean? Yes, sure, 36 points in the paint. That's awesome. But when you're 18 of 40 on paint shots, like that's not good. Shooting 45% on shots within 10 feet of the bucket is not good. Like you have to finish better than that, or you have to draw contact. That way you can go to the free throw line and hit 2 free throws or 1 free throw based on how Indiana shot them yesterday. Here is Trey Galloway and, Pacers, Indiana Hoosiers starting point guard Trey Galloway and head coach Mike Woodson talking about the offensive struggles in their game yesterday against Oregon.
Yeah, I think just, they're a good defensive team. But I think, like I said, just being able to finish around the rim, we had a lot of open, easy looks that we normally make, and we didn't. And then, 50% from the free throw line, we didn't shoot the free throw well, or same thing from three. So it's just being able to make shots and, like you said, shooting with confidence.
Here's Mike Woodson, Indiana head coach, echoing those same thoughts.
No, I thought they had a lot to do with it, although we missed a lot of chippies around the rim with Ballo and Malik. I thought that was a big difference. When they're not leaving Goody and Mac and giving you the looks that sometimes we've been accustomed to getting with those two guys, you got to make plays around the rim. And again, a 2-possession game. We missed 2 front ends of a 1-and-1. That was huge. I thought that was, after getting back in it, that was a big difference in the game because they made us pay both possessions back down the court offensively where we couldn't get to stop.
Trey Galloway and Mike Woodson right there talking about the struggles that this team had offensively. And look, let's just be honest. Indiana struggled offensively for most of the year, especially when it came to the production from their guards. Like, Miles Rice and Kaden Carlisle and Trey Galloway really felt non-existent for a lot of, the game. Malik Renew was the only consistent offense that Indiana had. 19 points on 8 of 15 shooting. Tip of the cap to him. He figured it out after struggling against Oregon and Eugene last week. And so he was the only guy who really consistently scored. Sure, Mackenzie Mbako had 12 on 5 of 10 shooting, but he wasn't consistent. He scored like 5 points in the first 90 seconds. He didn't score. And then he goes on this 13-minute scoring drought. And then he goes on another long scoring drought where he didn't score again until 7 minutes into the second half. And then he didn't score again until the game was basically over. Sure, he scored 12 points, but it's just like he wasn't a consistent go-to guy. Like he didn't or couldn't score when Indiana needed a bucket. And the only guy who could consistently score was Malik Renew. And you have to have more than that. Trey Galloway, because I'm sure some of you, who didn't watch the game and just looked at the box score, it's like, oh, well, Trey Galloway had 15 points and 9 assists. He played well. False. Not true. He should have had numbers like that. He took 18 shots. When you take 18 shots, I would hope that you can score 15 points. Really, if you take 18 shots, I'm hoping that you're scoring more like 25 or 24. Okay. He also had the ball in his hands more than any other player on Indiana's team. And when you play 35 minutes and you have the ball in your hands all the time, I would hope that you score some points and you rack up a couple of assists here and there. I didn't think he played very well. Luke Goody didn't make a shot, put up a goose egg. He scored 1 point, 1 of 2 on free throws, 0 of 5 from the floor, 0 of 4 from 3. Quick question for Luke Goody, because Luke Goody is in charge of saying who can and who can't switch sides. Luke Goody, are Indiana fans that have supported you all year, are they allowed to like switch sides now and be upset at you for not showing up at all yesterday? I don't know. I don't know. Speaking of shooting, though, Indiana's defense not much better than their offense. They allowed Oregon to shoot 40% from 3 compared to their 25% from 3. They allowed Oregon to shoot 49% from the floor compared to Indiana's 36%. Now, to Indiana's credit, the bigs did a good job of slowing down Nate Biddle. The bigs for Indiana yesterday, I thought, played fine. Okay, the issue was the guards. Okay, Malik Renew scored a decent amount. Omar Bala was okay offensively, but defensively, I thought he was good. They slowed down Nate Biddle, Oregon's leading scorer, 2 of 8 from the floor, only scored 7 points. But the guards for Oregon were significantly better than Indiana's. Jackson Shellstad and TJ Bamba were great, while Indiana's guards, Trey Galloway, Cannon Carlisle, Anthony Leal, Miles Rice, they weren't. Jackson Shellstad and TJ Bamba for Oregon combined for 35 points on 12 of 22 shooting. That is great production, and you're about to hear it said all the time. March is all about guards. It's about guard play when you get to tournament stuff. And Oregon's guards were really good yesterday. Indiana's weren't. Shellstad and Bamba, 35 points on 12 of 22 shooting. That's what they combined for compared to Indiana's scoring guards, so not including Anthony Leal. Trey Galloway, Cannon Carlisle, and Miles Rice combined to score 15 points on 6 of 25 shooting. Yes, Cannon Carlisle and Miles Rice put up goose eggs. They didn't make a single shot from the field, and Trey Galloway was 6 of 18. Not really all that much better. And if you want to put in Leal's, 4 points, 2 of 3 shooting into the mix, those numbers leap to 19 points on 8 of 28 shooting. You're not beating anyone with that lack of production from your guards. The guards for Indiana and their lack of production, that is why they lost yesterday. And when you look at Indiana, that's why they've lost games all year. Malik Renew, Omar Balo have been steady. Like you know what you're getting from them. But the guards from Indiana, you have no idea. Okay, like they're not great shooters, but they'll have random nights where they shoot the ball decently well from 3. Trey Galloway, who's been much better here as of late. Like he's been kind of inconsistent. And Miles Rice looks good some nights and then really bad the others. And Cannon Carlisle hasn't looked good since he arrived in Bloomington. Why he played at all yesterday is beyond me. But they just don't have consistent production from their guards, and it's why they're potentially not going to make the NCAA tournament. They've gotten a lack of production from those guys all year long, and that's been their biggest issue. Because Renew and Balo have been solid, but those other 3, especially Galloway and Rice, haven't been consistent enough for them to win enough games. With that being said, I still think they've been better than some of these other teams that are on the bubble and potentially going to get in. I'm going to make the case for Indiana to make the NCAA tournament when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
it may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully you guys have had a nice week. It is Friday. You have made it. And hopefully Indiana makes it into the NCAA tournament. I know, like, I've got some people on YouTube saying, I hope they don't make it. I don't want to watch them anymore. Well, if they make it, then don't watch them play. There's your answer. Believe it or not, you do actually control what you do and don't watch. But here is Malik Renew and Trey Galloway after the game yesterday explaining why Indiana should be in the NCAA tournament.
Well, I think we should be in the tournament because we got some big solid wins, not only against Michigan State, but, we got Purdue at home, and then we, swept OSU too. So I think we had some solid wins, and we also had some not bad losses, but we had some good losses where it came down to the wire and we couldn't get over that hump. But I feel like they give us a chance. We'll try to make a run in the tournament and give it all every time we step on the court.
Trey? Yeah. I mean, we know that we should be a tournament team, and there's a lot of opportunity for that. And I think just those crucial losses that we had that were just so tight, one possession games. So, but the way we've been playing the last month and a half, we've been playing like a tournament team. And I mean, I just think us just coming together and finding ways to get better. We haven't played our best basketball until now. So I think it's been good.
Trey Galloway and Malik Renew right there explaining why they deserve to be in the NCAA tournament. And Malik Renew, let's start with you. I'm sorry to inform you, but sweeping Ohio State this year, not an accomplishment. I don't mind Trey Galloway's argument as much. I still don't think it's a good one. They're 5-3 in their last 8 games, with wins over Michigan State and Purdue. Their losses came to Oregon twice, once on the road, once obviously yesterday at a neutral site, and UCLA at home. Is that a tournament team? I would argue yes, but not because I think Indiana is a good basketball team. It's just because their resume is better than everyone else's. Joe Lunardi disagrees with me as of today, or as of last night. He's got Indiana as the first team out. So he's got them on the outside looking in. We'll see. The only team that is argued to be in front of Indiana that I completely and totally agree with, that has a better resume than Indiana, is Texas. Texas, they're 6-9 in quad 1 games. They've got 6 good wins, including a couple over Texas A&M, and they beat Kentucky, and legitimately good wins against teams that are going to be top 5 seeds in March Madness. They're also playing in the best conference in college basketball this year, by far. The reason why they're on the bubble is because they're 3-5 in quad 2 games, and all their quad 2 losses have come in SEC play because this is the best conference in college basketball this year. And when it comes to putting teams in the tournament, I want to know that you can beat legitimately good teams, because that's who's in the tournament. So my argument for Indiana to be in, it's not for them to be in over Texas. It's for them to be in over Xavier, San Diego State, and North Carolina, the 3 other teams that Joe Lunardi has just in front of Indiana in terms of teams that are going to make the NCAA tournament. Indiana has more quad 1 wins than all of them. They're 4-12 in quad 1 games, which I will admit, it's not very good. But North Carolina's 1-11. Xavier's 1-11. I guess they're 2-11 now because UConn won last night, and that's now considered a quad 1 win. And San Diego State's 3-5 in quad 1 games. They have more quad 1 wins than every other team that they are competing with to kind of break in and make that tournament. Indiana's best win is also better than everyone else's that's on the bubble. It's at Michigan State, the team that won the Big Ten this year, on the road in East Lansing. Not an easy place to win. North Carolina's best win is UCLA on a neutral floor. Xavier's is at Marquette. San Diego State's best win is Houston on a neutral floor. And I'm sure some of you are like, well, Jonathan, Houston's better than Michigan State's. Like, isn't that a better win? No, because they beat Michigan State on the road in East Lansing. San Diego State's win came at a neutral site. Also, Indiana's second best win over Purdue at home. Yeah, that's a better win than North Carolina beating UCLA at a neutral site and, Xavier winning at Marquette. Okay? Like their two best wins are better than North Carolina and Xavier's best wins. Like that should matter. The other thing, Indiana doesn't have a bad loss. They are undefeated in quad 2, 3, and 4 games. North Carolina is 20-1. Their one loss in quad 2, quad 3, and 4 games was a quad 3 loss to Stanford at home. Xavier, they're 20-2 in quad 2, quad 3, and quad 4 games with losses to TCU and Georgetown. Come on now. San Diego State, they're 17-3 in quad 2, 3, and 4 games. They lost to Wyoming, as well as Utah State and UNLV. Indiana has more good wins than all these other teams on the bubble, and they have better wins, and they have less bad losses. I don't understand how Joe Lunardi could have Indiana on the outside looking in when they have more good wins, the best win, and no bad losses compared to all these other teams on the bubble. It doesn't make any sense. I think Indiana has a legitimate chance to make the tournament. The question is, how many bid sealers do we have? How do these other teams that are on the bubble still playing, how do they do? Which leads me to today's Indiana Hate Watch. Okay, but before we get to the Indiana Hate Watch, thank you, Marquette, for beating Xavier yesterday. Thank you, Boise State, for beating San Diego State earlier in the week. Now, here are the teams that you need to win in order for Indiana to make the NCAA tournament. Duke needs to beat North Carolina at 7. Tennessee, they play Texas at 3:30. You need Tennessee to beat Texas because I'm sure there's a reason that I'm unaware of as to why Joe Lunardi has Texas as the last team in. So that's the team currently one spot in front of Indiana. I don't get it, but, anyway. You need New Mexico to beat Boise State because Boise State is just behind Indiana. You need Utah State to beat Colorado State because Colorado State is just behind Indiana. And you need no bid stealers. Okay? Like you don't need, North Carolina to win the ACC. You don't need, I'm trying to think who else is still alive. Like you don't need for Tulsa to beat North Texas because North Texas is a team in the American that could potentially get an at-large bid. So, these are the things that you need to happen. This is how you need to root today. You also need to root for the teams that you beat, right? Like you need, some of your quad 2 teams to potentially become quad 1 wins. You need for, Purdue and Michigan State to keep winning and all those things. So that is, in terms of the other teams on the bubble, those are the teams that you need to lose today and just really going into throughout the rest of these conference tournaments heading in to Sunday. Purdue, speaking of Sunday, Purdue, they looked decent last night. They beat USC 76-71. Braden Smith really struggled in that game. USC, I thought, did a really good job of just making things tough on him. They had size on him at all times. He really struggled. 12 points on 3 of 10 shooting isn't great. He did have 9 assists, though, so good job to him, taking what the USC defense gave him. And the reason why, Purdue won that game is because Trey Coppin-Wren dominated. 30 points, 12 of 20 shooting. He's proven multiple times this year that he's good enough to beat you if Braden Smith doesn't play well. Like when teams take away Braden Smith, Trey Coppin-Wren is good enough to beat you. We saw it last night. We saw it really early in the year against Alabama. He took advantage of every ball screen that USC switched. He did. And if they doubled or blitzed Braden Smith coming off of it and they found a way to get him the ball, like he hit that little floater that he just seems to never really miss. Every time he touched the ball, I thought he was going to score. But the biggest thing that he did last night that allowed Purdue to win that game was he played for like 7 straight minutes in the first half when he had 2 fouls. Okay, he picked up, his second foul with like 9 minutes and 45 seconds left in the first half. Coach Painter pulls him out, and USC immediately goes on a run. Immediately. Like, they're up by 9 2 minutes later, USC was. So Coach Painter, timeout, Trey Coppin-Wren, you're going back in. And he did a great job of just not committing a foul for the rest of the first half. He actually, set his feet on screens. He didn't play defense with his hands. He didn't really leave his feet on defense at all. And because of that, because of his ability to play defense without fouling and to be able to stay on the floor, Purdue was able to go into halftime tied with USC because of that. So I thought that those 7 minutes from him were huge. And then Cam Heide finally showing up, man. A dude that like played important minutes for Purdue last year and can hit open threes and has this ability, to rebound because he's so athletic, and he's a good defender because he's so athletic. He finally played well last night. 3 of 3 from 3, 9 points and 11 rebounds. That's what he finished with. And it wasn't just that he shot the ball well. Like, it felt like he hit threes in moments when Purdue needed him to hit shots. Like, he hit big shots. He had the single biggest play of the game. USC down 2. Their best player gets to a spot, takes a little tough pull-up mid-range jumper, misses it, ball bounces back off the rim, right back to the USC player. And he's got 2 hands on it. He's got this offensive rebound. He's going to have an opportunity, a second opportunity to tie the game. But Camden Heide comes flying in and knocked that offensive rebound out of his hands. That play was huge. And it seemed like Camden Heide made a bunch of plays like that throughout the game. He grabbed important offensive rebounds. Okay, he finished possessions by rebounding defensively when, USC had the game tight. He hit a couple big threes in the first half to keep Purdue in the game. And Purdue needs him to continue to play like that because they just need a consistent role player. They haven't had one all year. Like, that Fletcher Lawyer is probably going to score somewhere between 12 and 15. Braden Smith's going to finish with, 16 and 8. And Trey Coppin-Wren's going to score, 20 and grab 10 rebounds. Okay? But, they need a fourth just consistent player that you can trust when he's on the floor. And hopefully Cam Heide turns into that guy during March. And they're going to need him to be that guy today because they're playing Michigan, who's good. They crushed Michigan early in the year at home, and then the game in Ann Arbor was back and forth. And today's game, I think, is going to be great. They need Heide in his size. I really actually like the idea of putting him on Danny Wolf. Sure, he's given up 5 inches, but he's so athletic that he can kind of make up for that. So hopefully he can play well. They're going to need his rebounding today because, between Golden and Wolf, Michigan's just a large basketball team, and Purdue is undersized at every position, it seems like. So they're going to need Heide today to knock down some big threes. Miles Colvin, I thought that, his 3-minute stretch to his 3-minute cameo to close the first half, I thought he was excellent. I did. He had a couple shots, rebounded well, just looked a little more in control of his game. There's some moments where he gets out there and he looks a little sporadic. Didn't see that from him yesterday. He looked a little more in control, and because of that, he actually produced. So can Purdue have a role guy step up today? Because that is what they're going to need to be able to win this game. Okay, they need a role guy that can step in and be really good for them and just trustworthy down the stretch. Because, you get to the final 3 minutes of any Purdue game, and if anyone other than Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, or Trey Coppin-Wren has the ball, you get nervous. You do. They need another guy that they can trust. Last night, it was Camden Heide. Hopefully, it continues to be him because they need his size and they need his athleticism. Hopefully, he shows up in a big way for them today. That's going to do it here at The Real Jonathan Smith Show. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to check out my show. I'm on every day from 10 to noon. The Dan Dockett Show is coming your way next. He's on from noon to 3. Got a nice little lineup of guests coming his way today. Aaron Torres at 1, and then LaFonso Ellis coming up at 2 o'clock. So, like I said, a really good lineup. Don't forget, Pacers, two big games. They're on the road tonight against the Eagles. When Dan and I do the Moondrops Sure Shot of the Week later today, They're going to be my pick, minus 13.5. Philly doesn't have any of their good players playing. Take the Pacers tonight, and hopefully they're able to pull off a big win tomorrow night as well. The Dan Dockett Show comes your way here in about 5 minutes.